a 10-minute morning flexibility routine.
You can significantly improve your mobility in just 5 minutes.
You just stopped and did the 5 stretches I'm going to show you here today.
Body needs this mobility routine to stay young.
Do you actually need to train mobility? Now, this might sound like a dumbass question, but if you scroll through social media right now, you will get bombarded with people basically threatening you to do mobility work, or else, I don't know, you're gonna die and fall over at age 25. Obviously, training mobility is smart. Most people my age have the bodies of a World War II veteran and will benefit greatly from moving better. As a certified NSCA PT and future physiotherapist, I've always given mobility exercises to my clients if they're limited in certain movements. And bodybuilders specifically have been told they should do some stretching because all that lifting weights got them big muscles but made them stiff as hell. So, as someone who's been lifting weights for almost 10 years now, and I've never in my life been within a radius of 2 meters of a yoga mat, you would expect me to be stiff as hell. And you would be right. If I put my back against the wall and try to lift my arm up straight overhead, you can see I'm reaching nowhere even close to the wall. I'm like inches away from showing something offensive. But look what happens when I try a different movement. When I bend over, pause, or squat down, I'm somehow pretty flexible. Where does this difference come from? Am I just genetically more flexible in my legs? Or am I doing something different that I'm not aware of? Because if you look at my training, all I do is lift weights. 2 days a week I train my upper body and 2 days my lower. But then I noticed something pretty remarkable. Look at this exercise, the Romanian deadlift. And then look at this stretch. Don't these two look very similar? What is actually the difference? You see, the whole argument to increase mobility is that you won't be restricted in your day-to-day life because of tight muscles. And that's a valid argument. Having poor mobility forces your body to compensate and do weird shit, which then causes injuries and chronic pain. But that feeling of tightness is usually not because of physically short muscles. It's actually your brain saying, nah bro, the fuck are you doing? And putting a brake on your movements because it feels weak and unstable in those ranges. And thank God it does, because if it didn't, you'll be tearing every single motherfucking muscle in your back every time you bend over to pick something up. What happens when you stretch? When you stretch, you're basically gaslighting your brain to force that brake off, making you more flexible, but temporarily. You might notice, after 30 minutes or so, your back is feeling like you just got molested again. And that's because all you did was remove the brake. You didn't give your brain any reason to believe it's safe to stay there. That's why people with hypermobility, for example, are more prone to injuries. They have excellent flexibility. So they have excellent flexibility, so they have a lot of movement in their joints, but horrible mobility. They don't have the strength to control that movement. I could have easily explained this without a whiteboard, but I just needed a reason to use it. So, how do we keep the brakes off without dislocating a joint? By stretching and training strength at the same time. This is where all those TikTok mobility drills come into play. Instead of just static stretching, they're doing some form of dynamic stretching, which is supposed to make you train strength at the same time. But here's the problem. Just swing your legs around in circles like a 304 is not enough to train strength. This is basically just like doing a gazillion reps of bodyweight crunches. You're just doing cardio. So, how do we fix this? By adding some weight. You see, if you put some weight to the stretch and try to control the load when moving in that stretch position, you're strengthening the muscles in that specific movement, removing instability and telling your brain that it's okay to be in that range. But isn't this just resistance training? When we do any specific lift, it almost always consists of 2 phases. A concentric phase, that's when the muscle shortens, and an eccentric phase, that's when the muscle lengthens. You probably have heard that you should always control the eccentric and not just let the weights fall down. Have you ever asked why? It's because when you load a muscle when it's lengthening, your body adapts by adding in tiny units of muscle called sarcomeres. But it doesn't add them for thickness, it adds them end to end, literally increasing the length of the muscle. You don't get that with just stretching or those random mobility drills. But you need to know this only happens when you train full range of motion. If you hoard every single motherfucking plate in the gym and proceed to throw all them holes on a bar only to perform half reps while moaning as loud as humanly possible, obviously that shit's not gonna do shit for your mobility. In fact, quite the opposite will happen. You're teaching your muscles to only move in that range and they will actually shorten. So if by doing resistance training, you get better strength, stability, flexibility, and you'll just look way better, why the fuck would you ever choose to do these mobility drills or stretches instead? Even if your goal is just flexibility, resistance training is in every aspect superior. And if we now look at my mobility, it makes sense now why I'm able to touch the floor with my hands but can't for the life of me get my arms up behind my head. With Romanian deadlifts, every rep I'm loading my hamstrings in that stretched position, but there's not a single exercise I'm doing that stretches my arms up overhead. Now you might think lat pull down or pull-ups, those exercises actually don't fully stretch overhead. Your arms are slightly in front of you. Okay, but some of you now will say, if my stiff ass can't get into position to lift in the first place, shouldn't I stretch first? Which I have to say, fair point. But even then, stretching is still inferior. You just modify that lift and train in that limit. Let's say, for example, you can't do a barbell squat because of tight ankles. Do them first with an heel elevation and then train in that range of motion. Over time, lower the elevation and your ankle mobility will slowly increase. No need to waste your time and do 15 different variants of ankle stretches beforehand. Okay, so does that mean that stretching is completely useless and everyone that's still doing them should jump off a bridge? Not necessarily. Before I get every fitness expert or whatnot on my dick telling me I have no clue what I'm talking about, I have to add some nuance here. There are actually contexts where stretching is actually better or the only option. For example, athletes like gymnasts or Olympic lifters who need to get into extreme positions, or in rehabilitation contexts where stretching is sometimes the only valuable option, during post-surgery for example. But that's like 0.0001% of the population, and I'm betting my grandma this shit doesn't apply to you. So start with the 90-degree handstand lab biased goon stretches you just saw on TikTok and lift some fucking weights.